Hi guys, and welcome to Escape Wheel Watch Reviews. My name is Steve, and today we're going to be reviewing a pair of Pagani design PD1752s. And as you can see, I've got my gloves on today because these are very shiny and I don't want to have to keep wiping these things off. So I received these watches for free from the Pagani Design AE official store on AliExpress. I don't have to send the watches back, but you guys know the deal by now. That's not going to sway my review one way or the other. And if by the end of this review you find yourself wanting to pick one of these up, I really would appreciate it if you use those affiliate links down below. It costs you nothing more, but the small commission earned from the sale really does help support this channel. So thank you guys. If you've ever used my links in the past, I really do appreciate it. So the current retail price for this watch is about $109 US, and that's before any discounts or sales. You guys know Pagani Design and their sales. They almost always have a sale going on. I'm currently seeing it listed for about $87, and that's before taxes, but that's after all the coupons are clipped. So yeah, just keep an eye out for the sales. They definitely do go on sale quite often. This watch is available in 4 different colorways, which you can see on screen here, and I think they all look really good. They are all sunburst dials, but keep in mind the gold case comes with baton indices made of some sort of synthetic jewel, while the steel case comes with applied Roman numerals, and we'll detail those a little bit more in the dial section. The watch case and bracelets are made of 316L stainless steel. It has a sapphire crystal, screw-down crown, screw-down case back, 100 meters of claimed water resistance, and it's powered by the Seagull ST16 automatic day-date movement. So what do you guys think of these new releases? I think they look pretty good. Have they improved in some areas, or is it the same old from Pagani? I say we find out. But before we do, we'll do a quick wrist check for the day. Just got this one in. Literally just arrived about an hour ago. Got it sized up. And this will be on the channel very soon. Alright, so let's do the dimensions. And just keep in mind, both of these watches are exactly the same. Diameter, we've got 36 millimeters right on the dot. Thickness of 11.4. 20 millimeter lug width. Got a lug to lug of 44.1. Total length is 46 millimeters with those slightly protruding end links. And sized up for my 7.5 inch wrist with about 4 links removed. It weighs 128 grams. So I think the size on these things are great. 36 millimeters seems to be a pretty popular size. It's a little bit on the small side for me, but I think it wears pretty good just because the case thickness, at least the sides of the case, the mid case here, actually looks pretty thick. So it does add a little bit of bulk to larger than average wrists, I'd say. So I think this is actually going to wear pretty well on a lot of wrists. So I'm going to go outside right now and throw it on my wrist for you. And here we are on my 7.5 inch wrist, and you can see I think it wears really good. It's pretty small, but I don't think it looks too small. Definitely has kind of a vintage look to it with that size. Definitely would be suited for a smaller wrist, but I still think I can pull it off, and I think it looks really good. You get lots of light play off of that bezel. I mean, that just looks like a disco ball. Same with the hands and the indices. I mean, that just looks great. Looks really good. You can see that blued second hand, and yeah, I mean, it just looks really good. It's very comfortable, very balanced. Maybe a little bit bottom heavy, but we'll talk about that when we talk about the bracelet. But yeah, I think overall it does look pretty good. And popping out in some direct sunlight here, you can really see that nice sunburst effect on the dial. It looks really good. It looks very, very good. And again, tons of light play off of that bezel. It sparkles great. I mean, if you want an eye-catching watch, this is the one to get. I think that looks really, really good. And there's the gold model, and I think that also looks really good. Gold is really not my style, but I actually think that looks pretty good. Again, lots and lots of light play off of that bezel. I think it looks really, really good. And here we are in some direct sunlight. You can see that slight sunburst effect on the dial there, but still really, really nicely done. You can see all that light play off of those I guess, faux diamond indices there. Yeah, they sparkle pretty good. It's a very blingy watch. Alright, let's go inside. Let's throw these on some straps and we'll get back to the review. We'll start out with the gold one here. Threw it on this nice texture. This is vintage leather one. Link down below. Just black on gold with the black. I think that looks good. I don't really know any other color that goes with gold. Maybe a brown, but I didn't find one that looked good, so I'm just going to stick to black ones for this this strap show. But yeah, I think that looks pretty good. What do you guys think? And here we are on another black textured kind of vintage looking strap. This one came off of my Sanda tank, so yeah, no link for that strap, but that just gives you an idea of what just a simple black dress strap would look like on this thing. And I think that looks pretty good. I got one last strap for this one, and then we'll go to the steel. And lastly, for the gold one, here we are on a black Perlon strap. I think the texture gives it a nice look, and I like that a lot. That's one layer underneath the watch there. I think that looks good. All right, let's go get the silver one on some straps. Here we are on the steel case. We've got a gray suede strap. This one is lifted off of my old Pierre Paulin, so no link for this one, but it just gives you an idea. Really nice looking, I think. This blue, shade of blue, it's kind of hard to pair with, so you're kind of stuck with blues and blacks and grays, in my opinion. Brown doesn't really look good on it, so yeah. But there's the gray, and I think that looks awesome. Alright, here we are on a Milanese mesh. Very shiny bracelet for a very shiny watch. I think that does actually look pretty good. What do you guys think? And here we are on that vintage leather strap again, linked down below. This is a tannish brownish color. I think that looks okay. Definitely not my favorite one, but yeah, it doesn't look horrible. What do you guys think? And lastly, here we are on a dark blue vintage strap. That one is also obviously linked down below. Same one as before, just different color. I don't really like this at all. Yeah, that does not look good to me, in my opinion. Just too many different blues. You got the dark blue of the seconds hand, the dark blue of the strap, and then the light blue of the dial. Just too many blues going on, in my opinion. It doesn't look terrible, but definitely far from my favorite one. All right, let's go inside and let's get back to this review. Okay, so let's talk about the case finishing. And the case finishing on both these watches is actually pretty decent. I'm quite happy with it. It is a fully polished case for both of them. I will bring the gold one in here too, just so you guys can see. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty nice. Getting up real close, you can see got a fully polished bezel there, fluted bezel, done really, really nice. They do sparkle pretty nicely. Not quite as good as, Chronos or something like that, but definitely they do sparkle really nicely in certain lighting, and I think they look pretty good. I'm going to drop this down here for a second. But you can see finishing fully polished on the tops of the lugs here, fully polished on the sides of the case, but nicely done. I see no major issues with the polishing on it. It's pretty darn good, I'd say. Flipping it over to the crown side here, we got a fully polished but signed Pagani design crown. Again, nicely done. No issues with it. I think it looks pretty good. You got a decent amount of turn down as well. And yeah, I think it looks pretty good. You've got brushing in between the lugs there, hidden by the bracelet, but at least it is finished to a decent standard. Yeah, pretty happy overall with the finishing on this thing. The bezel does look really good. When you get really close, you can see it's not perfect, but I mean, you never get this close. I think it looks really good on wrist. Flipping it over to the case back here, you have your typical Pagani design display case back. We'll test that for sapphire in just a second, but pretty nicely done. Pagani design, little spec sheet around the bottom. Yeah, no major issues with it. It's nice and smooth. You got simple notches there to get a tool in if you ever want to mess with this ST16 movement. Circular brushing on the bottom of the case, and everything is nicely smoothed off. It's a very comfortable watch. Yeah, I've got no issues with it. Alright, so let's talk about the crystal. First things first. Test it for sapphire. Got a sapphire crystal. We've got a sapphire cyclops. Let's see if we can test the back here. And looks like just a mineral crystal in the back. So the crystal on this is actually pretty good. They say it has some anti-reflective coating. You can definitely see it on that cyclops. It's got a blue hint to it. So that keeps the date nice and legible. I'm not really seeing any blue tint to the main crystal, but I don't really think it it's missing anything. It's a flat sapphire crystal. I've got no issues when they don't use AR. It's obviously nicer when they do, but yeah, I mean it's never been a distraction for me, so I've got no problems with them. Whether it's got AR or not, I don't really care. But it's just a dead flat piece of sapphire there. The Cyclops on this one, the gold, it's a little bit low. I'm not sure you can see it or not, but it is definitely a little bit low. But still, it captures the entire date window there. And I'd say it's probably like a 1.5 magnification, so could be a little bit better, but it doesn't look bad at all. Moving over to the blue one here, this Cyclops is dead on. Yeah, it's perfectly aligned. And again, it's probably 1.5x. I think it looks really good. The crystal sits just barely above the bezel, but not enough to really hit on anything and chip, I don't think. So overall, pretty pleased with the crystal on this thing. Whether it has AR or not, it's a pretty nice crystal. All right, so let's get real close. We'll talk about the dial on this thing. And the dial is really beautiful. Absolutely love the color they chose, this kind of pale blue. It looks really, really nice. You get some nice grain in there with that sunburst, a very strong sunburst. I think it looks excellent. It looks super, super clean. Very happy with it. You've got nice, clean day and date cutouts there, nicely centered. I mean, they look really good. Very nicely done. Nice little chamfer around the outside there. And yeah, they look nice. All the indices are applied except for the 12 and 3. You've got your 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 with some Roman numerals. Everything else is just single batons. And I think they look really good. Everything seems to be aligned perfectly. You've got a simple printed minute track around the outside on this model. And again, everything looks really good. You got your Pagani design shield with the Pagani design branding. I think it looks good. It looks nice and clean. Everything, again, aligned very nicely. No issues whatsoever. The handset on it, again, really nicely sized. You got your second hand reaching right out to the minute track there. Same with the minute hand, nice length on it, and the hour hand I think is perfect as well. On this model, I don't think the other ones have the blued seconds hand, so I think it's just this blue one. It has definitely a painted blue hour hand. It's definitely not thermally treated or anything like that. Odd decision. I kind of wish they would have just gone with a silver hand, but it doesn't look bad. I just think the silver hand would have looked a little bit better. But overall, I'm very happy with the dial on this one. I'm going to place it down and we'll talk about the gold dial. So as you can see, things are a little bit different here. You have a deep glossy black dial, though there is some sunburst. I know you could see it out in the outdoor shots. Can't really see it here. But again, it's pretty nicely done. You've got a nicely centered day and date window. No issues with that. Your minute track printed around the outside, they actually have some Roman numerals around them, so that's a little bit different. That's another, just a small change that they did. Get your Pagani logo there in gold. Pagani design text in gold. The handset, nicely faceted, again in gold. This one is all gold. You have no blued on this one, thankfully. But the main difference is these indices. So they went to fully baton indices, and they're obviously a synthetic diamond or something like that. So yeah, but I think they're pretty nicely done, nicely sized. They're nice and big and bold. They don't really disappear at all. A little bit too much bling for my taste, but if this is kind of your style, they did a pretty decent job. Obviously, they're not perfect. They don't sparkle like a diamond does, really. That's one thing I was a little bit disappointed in. They just don't sparkle like even a cubic zirconium, a synthetic diamond would sparkle. It just doesn't sparkle that much. So I just think, it might just be plastic for all I know. I really don't know. But yeah, I do think they look pretty good from a distance. And I think the dial in general looks pretty good on both of them. All right, so let's talk about the movement in these things. So I'm going to pop up their time grapher shots right here. And here's how you can see they're running. And, one of them is pretty much spot on. The other one is about 20 seconds. I think, these are kind of the extremes. You're probably going to fall somewhere in between there, like 10, 12 seconds fast a day. And I think that's completely acceptable. I've had no issues with the movement so far. So far, it's been pretty good. So I'm going to show you guys how it works. The movement is operated by this 3 o'clock screw down crown. Again, nicely signed. Pretty good size on the crown too. It's a little bit short, but I'm happy that they went with a short crown. Sometimes Pagani throws on really tall crowns. And it just looks funny. This one, perfectly proportional in my opinion. First position is hand winding. Second position, this is where you change your day and date. So I'm going to skip this for just a second because I don't want to do it in the danger zone. So I'm going to pull it out to the third position. It hacks the movement there, and this is where you set your time. And I'm going to show you the day changeover here. So right at about 10:30 or so, you see the date starting to switch over there, and it'll switch over right at midnight or pretty close to midnight. There you go. And then after that, the day starts to change over. So there you can see it. And that takes a good 3 hours to change. Unusual, but yeah, that's just kind of how this movement works. I'm not really sure why they need like a double click there, but it is what it is. That's what we got to do. And yeah, I think everything works fine though. I'm going to show you the crown action for the date change. So you roll the crown backwards, and that changes your date. And then you roll the crown forward, and you get this double click again, and that rolls it forward on the date. Pretty simple to use, intuitive, no issues with it. The crown threading in, crown threading out is perfectly acceptable. The movement itself, it is 21,600 beats per hour, roughly 40 hours of power reserve at hacks, hand winds, and it's been pretty good for me. And if you missed it before, Pagani Design did throw a decorated rotor on there. The rest of the movement looks a little rough, but thankfully that rotor is pretty big and it looks pretty good. Okay, so let's talk about the bracelet on this thing. And the bracelet, it's pretty nice. It does taper from 20 millimeters down to 18 millimeters at the clasp. You can see here we've got solid end links. We've got 3 solid links here making up the bracelet itself. Pretty nicely rounded there, pretty nicely finished. You have polishing in the middle there. You can see when you get up close, it looks a little rough, but because it's so rounded, you don't really notice it very much. The outer links here, they could use a little bit better of a brushing on them. I'm not too impressed with the brushing on the bracelet itself. But yeah, that's kind of what I expected for this price point. But they could have done a little bit better there, I think. The end link fitment, nice and solid, nice and tight in there. I've got no issues with that. I know people are going to mention this end link here. It is a female end link. It does protrude just a little bit, and it does bump up just a little bit outside of the case lines there. That is true to the watch that it is homaging. They do the same thing, but I think they definitely have a cleaner look in this lug area. Not quite as nicely integrated as it could be, but it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't really look that bad at all. So I think, they did a pretty good job for their first, bracelet of this style. Yeah, I think it does a pretty good job of mimicking what it's going after. So other than that, though, I think the bracelet is fine. You can see right about there, these 4 links here, they get caught on each other. That happens throughout the bracelet, and that just creates a pinch point. It has pinched some hairs, so just something to be aware of. It doesn't happen all the time. But it is just something to be aware of. Other than that, though, as far as comfort goes, it's perfectly fine. It is pretty jangly. It is pretty flexible. So that does aid in the comfort of this watch. Working our way down to the clasp, you have your typical Pagani 2-button clasp here. Brushed on the top, brushed on the sides, polished chamfer. Very soft transitions between the brushed and polished, but it's what you expect here. You got 3 levels of micro adjust here. The clasp itself, it's perfectly fine. It's nice and low profile, nice and rounded. No sharp edges on it. It works fine. Inner parts are completely milled here, and they work, again, completely fine. I've got no issues with it. My only issue with this clasp is this absolutely worthless diver's extension. I don't know why they put a diver's extension on here. It just cheapens the look. It cheapens the feel. I'm assuming that, that has a little bit of a rattle to it as well. So especially on a watch like this, nobody's going to be diving with a watch like this. So Pagani, just ditch that completely, and we'd all be a lot happier about it. Other than that, though, I think the bracelet is completely acceptable. It's definitely nothing special, but it is very comfortable. And yeah, I've got no real issues with it. I had five links removed, I believe. And you can see here there's only 3 links left. So yeah, this might only fit down to like a 7, maybe 6.5 inch wrist or something like that. So just something to be aware of. Other than that, though, overall, pretty happy with it. So I'll show you the gold bracelet here just so you can kind of see it. Yeah, same complaints with the other one. The middle links, they're not the nicest finished, and the outer links as well. The brushing is just kind of, I don't know, just kind of not there. Doesn't look the greatest, but from a distance it looks fine. Clasp actually has the same exact diver's extension. This one is actually really stiff, but it is gold, so that's nice to see. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the bracelet. It's overall not a bad bracelet, but definitely not a great bracelet either. But for the price, it's going to be hard to beat. So there you go, guys. That is the Pagani design PD1752. I like to be able to show both of these off to you guys. I mean, it's kind of cool that they sent me both of them. I didn't want this one. Just definitely not my style. I'm not a gold watch person, but they sent it anyway, just so you guys could see it. And I'm glad they did. Yeah, it's nice to be able to see these things side by side and kind of get a feel for the differences in them, get a feel for the consistency of Pagani design. And I think they're getting better. Definitely that dial is really nicely done. And the case finishing, I think, has been stepped up just a little bit on this model. It's definitely pretty nicely done. Yeah, I've got no issues with the case finishing or the dials on these things. They're really, really nice. So if you guys are interested in picking these up, again, I would really appreciate it if you use those links down below. Those are affiliate links. And I really appreciate when you guys use those links. I get a small commission. You guys get the nice watches. Hopefully you get it on sale. And yeah, everyone's a winner. This channel keeps on going, and I'll keep doing what I do. So thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.